First of all, we'd just like to give a karsa tov to Willig. I know Rabbi's very busy. Rabbi's going to Eretz Yisrael this afternoon, so very grateful Rabbi could take the time to give a shiur. So just introduction to why we're having this shiur now. So Sammy and I are fellows. We're part of the Fellowship of ORA, which is the Organization for Resolution of Agunos. So this year we learned about the challenges some Agunos face and some solutions. So one of the solutions is the Halachic Prenup, which we're gonna hear more about. And we're also especially privileged because Rav Willig was really the power behind the Halachic Prenup. And if anybody has any questions in general about ORA, about Halachic Prenup, obviously you can talk to me or Sammy, or obviously Marina or Willig. So without further ado, Rav Willig Shlita.
My title is The History and Importance of the Halachic Prenup. So I guess you have to start with history. Try to go in order. History goes back a long time. Way back in the, actually 1973, believe it or not, I was appointed to become a rav in a shul called Young Israel of Riverdale. At that point in time, the Aguna crisis was already in full swing because of a combination of two factors which caused it to become exacerbated. One, sadly more divorces, very sadly more divorces. And two, the lack of any organized kehillah. In the olden days, divorces were few, and there was a strong communal presence. Way back when, before we'll call the Enlightenment and the modern era, if a rabbi was in charge of the community, there was really nowhere to hide. There was one rabbinate, there was one chief rabbi usually, and the only way out was to convert to Christianity. There was no reform, no conservative, and by many places you had to belong to a community. Couldn't be what they call today unaffiliated. That wasn't an option. So if you didn't want to give a get, you had problems. There were always some agunas, but most of them were taken care of. There weren't that many to begin with. And there was much more power in the hands of the rabbinate. But as things became more decentralized, Rabbanon can't do anything. Rabbi X will say, give a get. Go to Rabbi Y, and Rabbi Z. He goes through the whole alphabet. That's how many rabbis there are in the world. So there's nothing to be done. I said to myself, believe that if I have a problem like this, we have to do something. I can't just sit by and say, sadly. So I had a 15-year honeymoon, which means there were some divorces, but they didn't come to me. Whatever they did, they did. But my luck ran out, as you can well imagine, and it was now 1989. There was a woman who asked for a get, and she was entitled to the get for various reasons. And the husband said, no. Here's my moment. I said, you have to give it. And he said, if you don't do A, B, or C, you'll be an aguna. I felt like a bull with a red flag, This is the thing I'm trying to prevent. So I said, you have to give the get. So I went to another shul. That's the inalienable right of a balabos to pick a different rabbi, a different shul. Anyone here from Riverdale? No? So at the time there were really 3 shuls in Riverdale. We'll call public big shuls. My Young Israel, which is the smallest of the 3. So then this individual went to Rabbi Rosenblatt from the Riverdale Jewish Center and told him his story. I knew this story from both sides. This man was an honest person. And he told the story honestly. And Rabbi Rosenblatt said, you have to give a get. Okay, 2 strikes. He went to Rabbi Avi Weiss, the Hebrew Institute of Riverdale, told him his story. He said, you have to give a get. So now 3 strikes and you're out. What does it mean you're out? What does it mean you're out? So as things went on, he simply kept refusing. We did something which is really very rare. The 3 of us signed a letter, made a phone call, said, this is right after Sukkot of 1989, I believe it was. And we said, you can't come to shul. If you come to shul, we're going to stop the services. Okay? So there was a little shul of retirees. This person was a PhD. It wasn't the fichavodo to daven at that place, but they gave him a place where he can daven. And that's where he davened. It wasn't easy. Different rabbis have different policies. I don't go to board meetings. I don't go to any meetings. It's not my job. I'm the Rav. I think only time in all my 50 years plus, they asked me to come to a meeting with the officers and the Gaboyim about this case. And they said, why are you so one-sided? There are two sides to every issue. I said, you're right. There are two sides to every issue. I'm familiar with both sides, but have to calm down somewhere. No. I said, listen, I'll give you three choices. Either you convince them to give a get, or if you don't like the way I'm handling it, find someone else. Pick another person to be the, quote, Av Bezin of this shul. Or I'm the Av Bezin. There cannot be anarchy in this shul. You can well imagine the first two didn't pan out. So I once said at a shiur that I'm the Av Bezin and said, who made you? You asked me to come to a meeting. Don't ask me to come to meetings anymore. Anyway, so this is going on and on and on and on. Full story, a few months in, after their argument, now it's going through court, you understand. A few months in, I got a call from a particular Toain / Borer, one of these characters, in a deep voice and says, he wants to go to Bezdin. Now in Shulchan Aruch it says in Choshen Mishpat Siman Chavav that if a person is in secular court and loses, or as the Mefarshim say, he's losing and sees he's losing, we don't believe in 2 bites at the apple. Don't believe in forum shopping. You have been in court for months. You never asked to come to Bezdin. Now things are not going so well. Come to Bezdin. So I said no. So of course, if the guy said nasty things about me, I'm matter to go to our course. I never would have said that. So they didn't ask me. They were in our course for months already. Fine. So that year, as it happened, we were learning Gittin. Just so happens. You look up in the old archives, what we learned that year was 89, 90, learning Gittin. It's Erev Pesach. I told my Talmidim, enough of this lumdus of Edom Mesira Karsi, whatever we were learning about. We have to try after Pesach to put our minds to it. Learn the end of Gittin, the Mishnah about Kofan also, and the Get Meusa. So believe that after Pesach we'll start. And we did. Day after Pesach, we came and started the shiur. That week was a Thursday, it was Rosh Chodesh Iyar. The get was given. Wow. How did it happen? There was a judge, I was told, a woman, Jewish, non-observant judge. And she saw things are going nowhere, and she said the following. Listen, I'm splitting your assets 50-50. But, sir, if you give a get to your wife within 10 days, I'll give you 55%. Ooh. Very smart judge. Judges typically penalize a husband for not giving a get. That's a problem of get meusa, coerced get, which may be invalid. But rewarding someone, people pay fortunes of money to get a get. So here the judge gave quote, what, such a big fortune, whatever, an extra 5% of their property, and the get was given. I actually called up right then and there the author of Kfiyah Beget, the raffle winner, Rabbi Gartner, was my friend. We'll see, I'll mention the same later. And he said, yeah, the get is good. Guess what? 2 days later, she comes to shul. I told the Gabbai, you must give this man shlishi. He says, Rabbi, 6 months, he's persona non grata. Now shlishi? I said, absolutely shlishi, nothing less. Why? I said, for 6 months, he didn't give the get. We didn't want to let him in. He gave the get. He deserves shlishi. So, called him up for shlishi. After the next aliyah, the people turn around, and you know how it goes. Some people come shake the rabbi's hand, some don't. You've been around shuls. I didn't wait. I ran up to him to shake his hand, like this. He hesitated a little bit, but he shook my hand. And thank God there's a parsha of Gerushin for a reason. He remarried, his wife remarried, and they live happy lives with the new spouse. There is a parsha of Gerushin in the Torah. But before this even happened, I started working on the sugya. And I saw an article in Moria, which is a prestigious periodical of the Mechon Yerushalayim, 2 years before, Iyur Tavshin Memches, an article by a man named Rabbi Tzvi Gartner. And he quotes a suggestion, Rabbi Zalman Nehemiah Goldberg. So I decided maybe something we can do with the suggestion. I don't have time to go into the other suggestions. We'll mention this a little tiny bit because just lack of time. So I didn't know Rabbi Goldberg. It was not so well known all those years back. So I asked Rav Meir Goldvicht, Shlita, who had just came in this fall of '89, for it was supposed to be a 2-year stint. Baruch Hashem, he's still teaching us Torah in this institution. And he was Chavrusa, Rav Zalman Nehemiah Goldberg. Because Rav Zalman Nehemiah was the son of Rav Shlomo Zalman, and he was very close to Rav Shlomo Zalman. They lived in the same Shari Ches. He grew up, his father was a Gabbai Tzedakah of Rav Shlomo Zalman. So he got me a phone number and an introduction. So I called him up. He was very deferential to me. He's one of the Gedolei Ador, and I'm a little young fellow. I asked him, was this ever implemented? He says, not to his knowledge. I said, is it okay if we try to implement it? He said, okay. He printed it. It's not Hilchos Mashiach. This began a lengthy correspondence. Began right after Pesach, and went on and on and on and on until I realized if I don't go to see him, nothing's going to happen. Okay. Credit should go to a group called the Orthodox Caucus, which was founded around a little before that time. They did 2 wonderful things before they disbanded. One was helping me with this prenup, and 2 was they helped reorganize the Beis Din of America. 2, I think, very significant accomplishments, both in the 90s, and we're grateful. So, they bought me a ticket to go to Eretz Yisrael during intercession. Now we're talking about already 1991. So my first stop was to visit Rabbi Zalman Nehemiah. And he meets me, I meet him, and it's Rebbetzin, the holy Rebbetzin, Shlomo Zalman's daughter. This began a 30-year relationship that I had with Rabbi Zalman Nehemiah. He unfortunately passed away. And we went back and forth. He says to me, you really want to do this? After all this correspondence, you can't rely on me alone. Can't. One person. Can't. I said, well, who should I speak to? Go to Tel Aviv, speak to Rav Tzimbalist, Rabbi Chaim Gedaya Tzimbalist, who happens to be an uncle of our own Rabbi Chanan Adler, a major Talmud Chacham, who was an Av Beis Din in Tel Aviv. The 2 of them, they knew each other from Chevron Yeshiva. They were both Iluyim in their youth, and they were both great Talmidei Chachamim. One in Yerushalayim, one in Tel Aviv. So, I called him up, meet me in the Beis Din. Come to the Beis Din, and actually I had borrowed a car. I drove him to his house, Tzfon Tel Aviv, and he looks at Rabbi Zalman Nehemiah's suggestion from the Moria. Lo motza chen beinai. Doesn't like it. This way, the way he said, is too close to the get. We want to do it, just not to do with the get directly. And he turned it around. In simple language, Rabbi Zalman Nehemiah's original suggestion that a man obligate himself to his wife $50 a day. Why $50 a day? Well, that's enough to live on in a hotel with room and board. That was a low sum, even back in 1988 when he wrote it. But I don't know if he ever was in a hotel or was ever in America to know what the prices are. But every day, $50. Except she'll be marchel it. Okay? So she's marchel it. But then, it says there, that if they cannot live together anymore, then she's not marchel it. So Rabbi Simbalis felt it's too connected to again. He said, do it the other way around. Don't have an obligation which begins automatically before they're married every single day. It's a subterfuge. Say it begins if and when they're no longer living together. From that point on, he has an obligation to pay her X dollars per day, as long as they're halachically married. So with great trepidation, I drove back to Yerushalayim, went to Rav Zalman Nechemia and said, Rebbe, you sent me to him, he wants the other way around. In 1 minute, Rav Zalman Nechemia said, all right, we'll do it his way. He had already been 3 years almost that he printed this piece with the other way around, and in 3 minutes, okay, do it his way. Turned out that way, in my view, is explicit in the Nachlas Shiva Siman Tes, where it says in the Tanoim Acharonim, it would be said there exactly this: if they can't live together, so then he's going to give her X amount of money right now, and X per week or per month, until they go to Bezdin right away, till the Bezdin succeeds in putting them together. I view this as a euphemism. The pshat is that it's a amount of money to support her, and because you're going to have to support her, you'd rather give her a get than have to support her at that rate. Just to skip ahead, Rabbi Usher Weiss, Shlita, was the most recent man to sign on to our prenup. He wrote a beautiful letter to Rabbi Gardner and myself, but he said the raya that I brought, he doesn't know if it's compelling, because there doesn't do with the get, just as you shouldn't starve to death. My research tells me it was a little bit more than that, shouldn't starve to death, and I think my theory is correct in terms of the raya, but he agrees with me, even if my raya would not be necessarily perfect. Come to that later. Good. So I go back to New York, armed with this, but I also went to Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. I felt I needed someone from the Sephardic community, and he took the text and was playing with the text. I even have his Ksav Yad in his blue pen that he made certain recommendations. Okay. I had a draft. It wasn't finalized, but I had some kind of idea. Went back to New York, and this Orthodox caucus had a whole bunch of lawyers, because if it's not going to be legally binding, it's not worth it. Guess what? It took me another year till I was able to get all the lawyers on board with correspondence. I went back a second time next year during intercession. Now I'm talking about January 92. Someone helped me type up a draft, and I went to Zalman Nechemia with the typed draft. He put in a couple of words of the carrot with my handwriting, and he signed. Went to have a symbolist, he signed. Went to have a Vaja, he signed, but he did me one favor. He put a date on it. Otherwise, it says, when? The other two just signed. I think it was Shvat Tovshin Nun Beis, my recollection. And great. Came back to America. We want to use it in America. I need some American Rabbanim to sign on. So I went with a man named Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Libis, who was the Av Bezdin of the Igud HaRabbanim, a prestigious organization, and I had some connection to him. I showed it to him, and he signed. I went then to Morena Reb Gedaliah Dov Schwartz Zatzal, who was Av Bezdin of America. He signed. So now I have 5 signatures. I wanted more signatures. I went to 2 great Rabbanim with whom I had a connection in the borough of Brooklyn. They share the same last name, Cohen. I first went to Reb Feivel Cohen. Posek Ador. You know about the Bari HaShulchan, no? Haven't heard of Bari HaShulchan? You must have heard about this. He's written on everything you have to know for your smicha. You want on Basa B'chov Taruvis, you want on Nidei, you want on Avelis. You have to know about the Bari HaShulchan. But you also wrote a little kuntris called Kuntris Midor L'Dor. You ever hear of it? No. It's about the equivalent of what we call a shtar chasi zachar, to enable a will to have halachic teeth. And in that little country, he invokes an obligation that a man makes, just to give an example, to his wife or to his daughters, that because of that obligation, his sons, who are his rightful Torah heirs, are going to be compelled to follow the will. Fine. Why am I saying that went to him first? Because there are some objections, substantive objections, to our prenup. And one of them is what's called asmachta. Asmachta means a contingent obligation. As a matter of fact, nothing is coincidence. It comes up in my shiur. I'm going to give another half an hour. Comes up in the sugi of ribis. There are knas. Asmachta comes up, and in Shulchan Aruch it says that asmachta works if you do it me'achshav, the mechaber. Ramah says should do it with a kinyan and a bezin choshev. I can't go into the details right now. So he has Rabbi Cohen in his sefer exactly that. It's me'achshav, a kinyan bezin choshev. So I knew he can't oppose on these grounds because he wrote it in his sefer. He said, you're right, but I don't think I can get involved in this. I went to Rabbi David Cohen, Shlita, said the same thing. You're right, but I'm not going to sign on. Okay, I feel bad for them. There've been was one particular bloodbath in their Chaim Berlin community. Okay, but they didn't say I was wrong. Good, so we went to work. Good. We started, we just did it. I had 5 rabbanim signed on to it. Did it. So we started right away. We did it. Remarkably, the people who had helped me asked me if I wouldn't mind going to Rabbi Yashiv and Rabbi Shlomo Zalman, who were the senior gedolim at the time, to ask them. Rabbi Zalman Nechem told me, don't go. It's just, you won't get a good result. But I was sort of forced to go. Went to Rabbi Shlomo Zalman, he said, in his beautiful beatific smile, Lech ledayanim. All right. Went to Rabbi Zalman Yashiv. It's harder to get in there, but I got in. And it's interesting how I got in, because his main guy was Rabbi Efrati. He's still, Baruch Hashem, considered the main person who was serving him. And he was my brother's chavrus in Kerem B'Yavne. So I figured I'm in like Flint. He turned me down. But one of the people who come get stuck for me, for his yeshivas, his kollels, got me in through the Rebbetzin. So I walked in there, and Efrati says, it went over his head. But he was a big gentleman. He told Rabbi Yashiv, this rabbi is from America, and he's on the right side of the 2 burning issues of the day. What were they? Brain death and the 92 get law, for those who know what that means. I don't have time to go into those controversies now, but since I was on the right side, which was an uphill battle, and so good, he said to me, you know what? I hear what you're saying. Go to Rabbi Morgenstern. That's his main associate when it came to these kinds of issues. He's an American MIT graduate, genius, and he sat with me, and he said, Rabbi Yosha has a couple of problems with this. One of them was asmachta. One of them was he doesn't know what he's signing. That had already been recorded by Rabbi Gartner. In that same Maria article, he went to Rabbi Yosha, but he doesn't know what he's signing. Come back to all of them. One was he thought that it's going to get people to go to court, which is really the opposite. And one was he's going to give a get where he really even doesn't want to. Let's take these objections one by one. Of course he doesn't want to, but it says in Shulchan Aruch you can make certain people things to convince him, as long as it's not a get meusa. Number 2, it takes people out of court. As a matter of fact, I should say it now, the 92 get law, according to these 2 gedolim, they said it's a sakana and not a takana. Rabbi Bleich Shlita, from our own yeshiva wrote, and he writes it with all the responsibility, he thinks that there's a presumption that every get in New York State since 1992 is no good. Whoa, unless you can find circumstances. And that's not accepted by the general rabbinic community, but that's what they called it a sakana. On the contrary, only way to get out of it is in our prenup, which has, in addition to the obligation we'll get to, has a document of arbitration, that all matters will be heard in Bezdin and not in secular court. So that problem of the 92 get law is eliminated because they now have to go to Bezdin. They can't go to secular court. So that's... But the main issue, of course, is asmachta. Rav Yoshev has a problem with asmachta, and one of the lawyers in Eretz Yisrael, who was a Talmud Chacham, wrote me, he's not going to like it because he holds that asmachta doesn't work. Even Kinyan, even Bezdin Choshev, even Meyachshav, it doesn't work. He printed it. It's true. I believe it's Kuf Samach Gimel in Kovas Shuvas. And yet, Rav Yoshev never came out against us. He knew full well how to come out against things in his lifetime. I'll tell you why, in my opinion. Because in Kuf Samach Gimel, in the other volume, Aleph and Beis, has an interesting question he asks. Every ksuba that the person obligates himself to more money than he's required to should be asmachta. So he answers something fascinating. The Gemara has in Kiddushin and in Ksubas that Kama tanos in the bincha, Kama tanos in the bitcha, Omda v'kitshu, Hein advarim anikna ba'amira. No need for a kinyan. Prenuptial obligations on the part of the families, those don't require a kinyan. For whatever reason, they can't go into right now. And he said, a ksuba is exactly that. You're right, I'm going to give you extra money. So therefore, a prenup would also be exactly that. Because it's prenup, that's what it's called. So therefore, it doesn't need a kinyan. If it doesn't need a kinyan, it's not subject to the problem of asmachta, which he has in these kinds of cases. The Fia Nir's daiti, I know Yosha was the Gadol Adar, that position is true of Yoshev according to the Rambam. Not that he needs my haskama, I think it's according to the Rambam. However, I think it's not true according to the Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam. And the way we pass in halacha, you can say kimli like the Mechaber Rambam, not like the Rambam. That's our general rule. And therefore, I thought that objection should also be eliminated. What happens? This is 1993. 1995, a very unlikely shidduch came to be. The girl was a daven in the Hebrew Institute of Riverdale, and the boy was in yeshiva of Far Rockaway. And the rabbi there was Rabbi Kaufman, who has since moved on to Waterbury. He's now became more famous in Waterbury. He's a son-in-law of Rabbi Feivel Cohen. Rabbi Aviawai said, I'm not letting her go to the chuppah without a prenup. So Rabbi Kaufman, who was a Masada, called his father-in-law. He said, he heard Rabbi Yashav has certain qualms. So I wrote on a piece of paper the 4 qualms that I just mentioned to you. And I, remember this, faxed it to him. You know what that means? I still have the original in my file. He saw all 4. He couldn't tell from Asmachta because I told you he has it in his sefer. The other 3 are really not so critical. He told his son, yeah, it's okay to sign it. So it was done. This is 1995. Interestingly, there was a desire to print this whole thing up in Moria, where it started. But Rabbi Buchsbaum said, I'm not there to print it. If Rabbi Yoshev says no. So I went again to Rabbi Yoshev. How did I get in this time? I don't remember exactly, but Rabbi Gardner came with me. And Rabbi Yoshev said, he'd rather it not be printed. So I believe in Das Torah of Gedolah. Still hasn't been printed. I had a whole marach. But what I did was, the substantive points that I brought are scattered in my last sefer, about Asmachta and about other things. It's scattered. I only make reference to our prenup in one place, and I only quote it from Rabbi Bleich, Shalita, who's not happy with it. He prefers the original version. He's worried about Asmachta. So you have to look between the lines to see a reference to it in what I wrote. There are a number of other points which I should touch on briefly. One of them is as follows. if the woman is making a fortune of money, he'll say, okay, her salary belongs to me. Look at Hilchos Ksubis. Her salary belongs to me. All the money is mine. All the money is mine. Kula shali. You learn Shnei Mochos Nav Beis? Zosomers, Zeomer Kula shali. It's all mine because all she makes, it goes to me. B'dinei Aksuba. So he put in a statement that during that period of time, he waives his obligation. He waives the right that he has to her earnings. So Rabbi Black correctly pointed out that's too early. Look at the Ksubas Daf Pei Gimel. That's before the Erison. Doesn't work. This is not a problem only for us. It's happened in many other instances. There's a Chuvas Avodas Agashuni, Chavas Yor. There's a whole discussion about this problem. Some say that once they have a Tnoim, it's already good enough. Others say that nowadays we don't have any Erison. Erison is a moment of Nisuin. So therefore, the Shidduch is good enough. But there was one big tzaddik who wasn't happy with this. His name was Moreinu Rabbeinu, a Goyin, a tzaddik, Rabban Lichtenstein. That's how. It was 10th year, it was just now. So what did he do? When he had a prenup, he signed it under the chuppah, between the Kiddushin and the Nisuin. He wanted to get around this problem. If you had to go to that door like a barn, you can do that. I can't. That's not going to happen in every wedding like that. So we have to rely on the kulas. We threw in a line. Rabbi Zalman Nechemah told us that it's a sma in Siman Laban and Choshen Mishpah that when he writes it should be deemed as if I repeated this waiver under the chuppah, and apparently it works. Fine. To add to that, it's very likely he's not entitled to even a nickel of her earnings. Because if you look in the Shulchan Aruch, he's only entitled to earnings that she does in the house. She goes out to work, he's not entitled. Especially what's called, it's much more than necessary. There's also two reasons why he's not going to be entitled. The Kitzur, that's that issue. Now, so we're moving right along, and it's been accepted by some and not by others. Why not by others? So I said from the beginning, it's because Chodesh Asur min HaTorah. Nothing new. My response was, new. This is a Nachal Shiva Siman Tes, which was written in the 1700s. A Talmud of the Taz, maybe 1600s. But there it's quoted from Takana Shum. That's the 1100s. This is almost 1,000 years old. Takana Shum is found, if you look on the Shulchan Aruch Even Ezra, you'll find it there. What does it say? Umachmas idur uktat yomek Takana Shum. What's ktat? Ktat is this. There's a fight, and they're not in the same house together anymore. Therefore, Takana Shum is that he has to pay that much money. Rabbi Bleich Shlita countered and said, no, that only works if they had the power of Hefker Bez and Hefker, organized communities. It was binding no matter what. We can't do that. We don't have that ability. I think he's half right. If you look carefully in the Pischei Tshuva, and that's Siman and Even Ezra, it says the difference between Ashkenaz and Poland. In Poland, where it was de rigueur, everyone signed it. So even if you didn't sign it, it's Takana Shum works. But in Ashkenaz, only if you sign it. To me, that means in Ashkenaz it was not across the board Takana, and still it worked. So I think it can work. I think it's a little bit more than the support. It's just to influence the man to give a get. Remember, every get he's partner from the basic obligation of she'era lo yigra, of supporting him. We don't say it's a get meusa because he doesn't support her anymore. So that's what I thought it should work. Fine. Remarkably, this initiative was accepted by large numbers of Rabbanim in our community. It's tiny little letters. You'll see a Kol Korah Lechever Rabbanim V'Tamidenu U'Tziburenu, an important message to our rabbinic colleagues, students, and community. It's signed. My eyes, take my glasses off. I'm reading its alphabetical order. Rabbi Chaim, Rabbi Blau, Rabbi Brander, Rabbi Chalap, Rabbi Feldman, Rabbi Glicksman, Rabbi Hirsch, Rabbi Horowitz, Rabbi Konigsberg, Rabbi Lamb, Rabbi Neuberger, Rabbi Rees, Rabbi Rosenzweig, Rabbi Sachs, Rabbi Schechter, Rabbi Schwartz, Rabbi Sobolovsky, Rabbi Stein, Rabbi Tendler, Rabbi Weider, and myself. Alphabetical order. We all feel this is important takana. Truth to be told, Rabbi Tendler said, you don't need this. He said, just have the ksuba translated to English and make sure it's notarized, and that does the trick, which is half true, but only half true. Why is that so? Because the takana of mizonos, which is found in the ksuba, does not necessarily work if they're no longer living together. Shulchan Aruch and Simon Ayin Sif Yud Beis, I believe, says, if they're no longer together, must he feed her or not? Simple. Depends whose fault was the breakup. If it's his fault, he must pay. If it's her fault, he need not pay. You know, in America, there's no fault insurance, because until you fool who's right, she'll turn white, whose fault it is. He was right, but that won't help in all the cases. There were other suggestions which came in before by Tender, which about certain kinds of penalty clauses, which I think are not appropriate. Our support amount is restricted to what we consider to be sufficient, but not way out of proportion. So when we first started, we had $100 a day, and at Rabbi Zalman Nechemiah's request, we had two different documents: a document of arbitration to cut a bestin, and a document of a obligation. We left blank both of them. Any bestin you want, and the amount you want. We saw right away it's getting nowhere. If you don't give them something which has everything in it, it's not going to go anywhere. So we did put into one document. We put $100 a day, Bezdin of America, and you can cross it out, you can play with it, but that's the default, and that's how it's gone ever since. We moved it up to $150 a day because of inflation, and it's still there, $150 a day. Even though my expert, I'll call my expert in a minute, thinks it should be $200 a day by now. Just to support a woman by herself for rent. Anybody here rent an apartment? Who here rents an apartment? Raise your hand. What does it cost you a month?
26.
Call you close to $3,000 to rent times 12. You're ready now talking, before you turn around, it's $30,000 a year. And $150 a day is it's $54,000. You have to eat. And for a woman, you have to buy clothes. Anyone married here? No one married yet? You ever see your wife's credit card? Okay, that's not fine. But the clothes is a sherik susa lo yigbar. So we think this is grossly understated now, but 150 is sufficient. Fine. What happened? Some rabbi, whose name I will not mention, in Israel started picking on us. This is no good, it's no good, it's no good, it's no good, it's no good. Why? What's he starting up with us for? I realized right away, he has his own version. There's a different version of a prenup. So you know how it is in the world. Until you knock the other one out, you can't suggest yours. So if I went to meet him, and I told him, you're making a great disservice. Why? Because you're conflating our prenup, which is the best of the lot halachically, with others put out by Sohar and what they call, they are reciprocal, which is already a problem. We have one if it's necessary. But it's much more natural for the husband to agree to support his wife. This is quoted in lieu of the chiyuv mazonos in the ksuba, as opposed to her supporting him, which is a little bit more artificial. We'll do it if necessary, but we don't like it in the first instance. But the most important distinction is our agreement can only be triggered by Bezdin. Only. You can't have it in the court. Whereas in their version, you can go to court and have it. They'll enforce the agreement, which Rav Zalman Nechemiah said, impossible. That can't be. So I said, you're conflating us. You're pushing people into something which is worse. Anyway, he sort of quieted down after a while. But, I gotta tell you one more story before I get to the but. There was a situation in which the prenup came to a bezdin, because only the bezdin could enforce it.
What happened was, there were 3 dayanim on the case. But they had to have 3 dayanim, and a husband and a wife, and 2 lawyers. Took 3 months to be able to get everyone into a room. He said that day, I'll give her a get today. Today I'll give her a get. He said that 3 months before also, but it wasn't in Bezdin. She said, nah, I want to go to this, get the civil stuff done first. Took 3 years, not surprising. So, okay, he finished a civil divorce, gave it again. He gets a love note in the mail, $100,000 in back support. $100 a day, 3 years. Came to the Bezdin. It was a 2-to-1 vote, which is rare by us. I mean, we followed the row. 2 of them said he's entitled to $10,000. She's entitled to $10,000. Why $10,000? Till he came to Bezdin. Took 3 months. $100 a day, $10,000. The other judge said, what are you kidding? He said he wasn't going to get the first minute. We couldn't organize a Bezdin. That's not his fault. We have a rule in our Bezdin, appeal. So I was the appellate judge. Rabbi Schwartz appointed to appeal. And I wrote a whole tshuva. 0. She was incensed. Even the 10 grand she lost. So she went to the judge in Maryland to overturn my ruling. It's an irrational ruling. The wonderful judge in Maryland said, not only is it not irrational, it's a wonderful, beautiful ruling. This is fantastic. This is great. Another case, in Connecticut, they said it's unconstitutional. The judge says it's constitutional. It's a financial matter. Separation of church. One silly judge said that it's invalid because it's coerced. Why is it coerced? Because she won't marry him if he doesn't sign it. Huh? You know, I'll buy a house. It costs $1 million. Huh? I take that. Coerced. Why? Wouldn't give me a house for less than $1 million. This judge, anyone this name judge has any seichel. But that's one. Anyway, getting back. What was the but I started talking about? The but means this fellow brought it to a goyin hatzadik zikana dayonim Rav Moshe Sternbuch Shalita. And he wrote a lengthy tshuva, where he starts with the first line. This is clearly a knas. It's a fine, because $150 a day is ridiculous. And then he has a whole tshuva of pages why knas is no good, even though Ramos says knas atzmo really is good. It's not really true. A mishkanas Yaakov. I saw it. I said the first line is wrong. The whole tshuva is wrong. So he made an appointment to go with Rabbi Sternbuch. Came with Rabbi Gartner, some of my family members. It's just a chance to meet Rabbi Sternbuch. That's itself a great thing. I had seen him, and I used to daven in his shul, but I never had a one-on-one conversation with him. And we explained to him, this is not exaggeration. But before I did that, I went to my expert from my shul, who's an economist, and printed out that $150 a day is very, very normal for the zip codes that our community inhabits. They're by zip code. Yes, in Bate Ungarin, in the Meir Shorim, it's a little exaggerated. As a matter of fact, we have an Israeli version, which has $75 a day. You don't need so much money in Eretz Yisrael. Whatever, that's what we do. So he was not happy about that, but he had other objections. One objection was, well, what happens if 150 is too much? They're poor people. So we said, we will lower it, because this is instead of the Chiyuv Mizonos, and if it's less than 150, we'll lower it. It's written in the document. Then he said, what happens? All right, he doesn't have the money. If a person owes money, he doesn't have it. Mistajim lebalchov. You don't take away his shirt, his chair, his table. So we responded, he has. He has the ability to get out of this very easily. What? Write a get. He doesn't have the money. Is it easy out? He heard it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so Rabbi Gardner wrote up a protocol, and we didn't want Rabbi Sternbuch himself to sign it. It would be nice. We asked his sons who were there. His sons were there. They didn't want to sign it either. And sadly, it was printed in Chelik Zayin of Tshuvas Van Hogos, but it's all based on the wrong fact. It's a wrong fact. It's not exaggeration. On the contrary, it's undervalued. It should be 200. It's only 150. So we think that the prenup is halachically valid. I would never do such a thing if I didn't think it was valid. I had to haskama of 5 chashav rabbanim, and then Rabbi Usher Weiss, number 6. And, there are people who object to it. They object to it. That someone was going to parcel the get based on the prenup, to me, is hard to believe, because we have so much rabbinic standing. We try to fix things up. Rav Symbolist himself said that he found a divrei gaonim, that if you write explicitly, that even if it's a smachta, it would still be overcome. That works. He put something like that. He put something called kimli, that if there's a dispute about a certain matter, the Bez has the right to invoke kimli, to accept any legitimate point of view to sustain this piece of paper. Spoken before about disputes about whether he's entitled to the money or not, whether the waiver before the marriage is valid or not. There are a lot of disputes in these things, and even as smachta, I agree the Rambam would hold it no good. I agree that. So we follow the more mainstream positions. And this is the story of the history and importance of the halachic prenup. I think it's very important. I used to go around, there was a principal who asked me to come to the seniors of her girls' high school, which I did. A couple years later, I got a call from this lady. I'm in trouble. What? Is a divorce, a breakup? Did you sign the prenup? No. I said, why not? They told me I didn't need it. You cannot imagine how much blood was spilled over this case. Blood and anger and recriminations, including the most chashuv Rosh Hashiva in this building. It was very bad. It could have easily been avoided with a prenup. So I tell people, you do need it. Not you. You should sign it as an impetus for others to sign it. Mitchum, yours will sit in the drawer ad me'er v'esrim shana. But there'll be other people, in the law of averages, somebody or other is going to need it down the road. And if you sign it, it'll get other people to sign it as well. I have a few more minutes for questions and answers. I have a shiur at 1. I'm not sure what your schedule is. Yes, sir.
If a husband is very wealthy and doesn't mind paying the fees,
that's right. This does not work for two classes of people. Multi-millionaires, they love to hold the wife on the oath till she turns white for cheap $150 a day. Won't work. So the one in Israel, they want to make it a percentage of his income, this kind of stuff. I'm not going to go there. You know who else it won't work for? Someone who's penniless. It also won't work. He doesn't have a nickel. In court, you owe the money. What's going to happen? 90+% of the world, much more than 90+%, belongs to neither of those categories. Even if he can afford to give her the money, he doesn't want to give her money. He doesn't like her anymore. Okay. Yes, sir.
Why isn't there a problem that he's going to give it too fast? He's going to have to pay all this money.
What's the question?
Why is there not a problem he's going to get too fast and really he shouldn't have?
Oh, thank you. There's been an objection that's going to cause getting to come when it shouldn't happen. Let me tell you why it's exactly the opposite. What happens when a couple starts to break up, the first thing they do is jockeying for position. Who should hear the case? Should it be in Bezdin? Should it be in court? And if it's in Bezdin, which Bezdin? That leads to breakups, the marriage is breaking up. That jockeying itself. Here, there's no jockeying. We know of course. We go to Bezdin of America. Not to jockey about. It's the opposite. Yes, sir.
I've heard some people say that there's a problem with it because of it's a kinyan dvarim, and that
it's a chalipin. Oh, by the way, when it says that he picked up a handkerchief in front of a bezin chashuv, doesn't really have to do it. Hodoaz baldin kamei edim damim. Once you start on it, it's good enough. There is one dissenting opinion out the Rebbe, but again, the mainstream view is not a Yehuda and Pesach Tshuva. So that works. I'm talking about that in my shiur later today. Yes, sir.
Why can't you write in it however much the base?
Why can't what?
Why did you write $150? Why can't you just write in it like however much the base?
Very good. Whenever we didn't put in, if you try that trick, they didn't agree, so they fought about that. So
no, say however, not how much they decide, however much the base decides later, like however much like.
Oh, it's adjusted to the CPI. It's adjusted to inflation. That's in there. Adjusted to inflation. That's a good point. Yes.
Rabbi wrote that Rav Shach was on the Kol Koreh.
Yes.
I think one of the 6 Rabbanim that signed onto the.
I didn't ask him at the time. He wasn't involved in Dayanim. I didn't ask any quote Rosh Hashivas. I asked people who were Dayanim. Well, he did sign it. He signed it now. Yeah. Yes.
You mentioned that Rav Aram said that it's better to sign it.
That job, he had that paid, but no one else does it by knowledge.
So is that better? Would you say that it's
I can't. It's not going to happen. I do say, don't wait till the last minute. If I'm a Sada Kiddushin, we always meet the Chas and Kala to discuss other things. I say, let's sign it right now. Well, let's sign it. Yeah.
Is there an inherent problem with meeting with the couple before the wedding, and if they're a very wealthy couple, and she usually is always lived off $500 a day? Is there any problem inherently with putting down $500 if it's a wealthy couple?
No inherent problem, but I'm not going to measure people's pocketbooks. I'll just leave it the way. Tefasta meruba lo tefasta. Leave it the way it is. Yes, sir.
Ray mentioned Ravadi Yosef had some changes to it originally. Ray mentioned originally that Ravadi Yosef had some changes.
No, they were incorporated. Yeah, no, we wouldn't do without him. No. There were those who say it's a forged signature. Kubi, it's my fault. I didn't ask to write a whole tshuva about it. I wrote a whole tshuva, wouldn't have been. They couldn't say it's a forgery. He never wrote a tshuva about this topic. He signed his name. So that's good enough. Neither the Rav Zalman Nechemah, nor Rav Symbolist, nor Rav Schwartz, nor Rav Leibus. None of them wrote a tshuva about it. The only one who wrote a tshuva was me, but I didn't print it because it's scattered in my safe. Yes, sir.
Because husbands are more inclined to give a get right away, does it happen often where couples get married again?
Or they remarry each other. Happens sometimes. Once in a while. Not too often.
They usually come back for a get afterwards also.
Sadly. All right, I think my time is up. I want to thank you for listening. And as I say, sign it. It'll be in the drawer. Hanmeh B'Esem Shana Amen V'Yamin.